The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, good afternoon, or perhaps good morning to you all, wherever you're joining us from. My name is Celia Gregory. I'm here in Alumni Career Services with Alumni Relations at Vanderbilt University, and this is Finding Fulfillment in Your Work, a webinar brought to you by your Vanderbilt Alumni Association in conjunction with Ms. Hallie Crawford, who I'm happy to introduce you to in just a second. I was going to make some joke about, don't worry about us, we're fine here in Nashville, and then I saw folks that signed in are from New York and Toronto and Boston, so I think I'll keep the weather jokes just to myself. But I hope everybody's safe and warm somewhere, and again, thank you for your interest in this. This is just one resource of many that we love to provide to our alumni as they develop professionally, maybe find their dream job. So be sure to familiarize yourself with other presentations and resources, most of them from our website, vanderbilt.edu/alumni/career. Little housekeeping, today's webinar will be wrapped up within the hour, so we hope you can stick with us. Maybe you're on your lunch break at your desk. We will just last about 45 minutes here with time saved at the end for questions. So if you have some desire to go ahead and put your thoughts out there, you can type them into the question box on the right of your screen there, but we will hold them for Hallie till the end. So thanks for your patience there, and we'll get the most out of this 45 minutes. The full content of today's webinar will be archived and posted on the Expert Advice webpage. I'll send you a link to in coming days, and we'll share the slides with you even sooner if you've logged in today. So you'll be on your way to share this with your friends and save it for your professional development. Many of you probably know our presenter today from previous alumni career offerings here with Vanderbilt, or maybe you even went to school with her here, but I'm so excited she's back with us today. Hallie Crawford is a career coach, speaker, and author based in Atlanta, whose company Create Your Career Path helps people find their dream job. She graduated from Vanderbilt in 1995 with degrees in interpersonal communication and psychology, and now for more than 10 years, Hallie and her team have helped people of all ages worldwide achieve their career goals. She's published numerous books, including Career Transition Tips for Singles and Identify Your Ideal Career Path, and she's also regularly featured as a career expert in the media. She loves working with universities, including but not limited to her alma mater, so you can maybe talk to your friends at UGA, University of Colorado, or Georgia Tech, who also enlist Hallie's expertise for career programming. So I'm excited now to turn this afternoon's presentation over to you, Hallie.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. And everyone, thanks for being here today, especially given the weather. I will say something. We're supposed to have weather here in Atlanta. We'll see what happens. And I was just thinking, too, I need to take the date of graduation out of my intro. It's aging me. I'm turning 42 next week, and it's starting to feel a little bit old, but we'll deal with that later. All right, so let's go ahead and dive in, everyone. We're talking about finding fulfillment in your work. And this is going to be for everyone here, anyone who is either considering a career change in order to find greater fulfillment, but it's also for those of you who feel like, yeah, I kind of need to stay put, but I want to find greater fulfillment in what I'm currently doing. So just know that the advice today and tips is going to be for both audiences. So here's the deal. This is me on the far left, just out of college. When I was about 25, I was living in my mother's basement in Atlanta, and I was not only living in it, I felt like, unfortunately, I was emotionally in it. I jumped around from job to job, very unhappy with all of them. I honestly had 5 different jobs before I was 26 in completely different industries. And I was really unsure what I wanted to do for my next job, much less what would be rewarding for me or how I would find fulfillment in my life. That was this really, kind of esoteric idea. I didn't know how to figure that out. And I had not had it before work-wise, so I wasn't sure how to find that fulfillment. And at the time, the only thing I feel like I had going for me was this cute Halle Berry haircut. So just want you to know that I understand how it feels to not have that sense of fulfillment in your work. And today, fortunately, I do have this enormous sense of passion and purpose. I found it. And what I wanted to share with you all today is some of the ways that I found that fulfillment in my work. And as Celia just mentioned, it'll be 13 years in a couple of weeks that I've been a career coach. And so I also understand how you might have that love and feeling for your job at the beginning, but you may lose it sometimes as you've been in a position for a long time, or in a role or an industry. So these tips are also going to be relevant for that as well, because I have had to, infuse that sense of passion sometimes too in my work when things get a little bit stale, okay? So One of the things that I did want to say while we're on this slide, though, is just to kind of frame our discussion today, I want you to know, too, and I always say this to our clients, that, you know, in terms of having a sense of passion and purpose, this also is not Pollyanna. I mean, I know we always hear, you know, do what you love and the money will follow. It was very hard work to grow my business to where it is. And so it's not like it just, you know, happens to you. And so what I want you all to think about or consider in terms of, you know, having greater fulfillment in your work is not that it's going to be perfection every single day. I honestly think that's unrealistic. It's not that way for me. And there are days where I would rather, you know, stay in bed and be independently wealthy than work. I mean, I'm sure we all feel that way, right? But what we're going for, and I really wanted to frame this out for you because I think it kind of takes some of the pressure off of it, is we're going for the good in what you do in terms of work so far outweighs the bad that you barely notice the stuff that you dislike about your work or that isn't as rewarding and fulfilling. That is what I have hands down. There are things that I don't like about what I do and days that are frustrating, but I barely notice those, everyone, because overall it is such the right fit for me. So that's what we're going for, okay? And I know that it's possible not just because of me, but because of the clients we work with. Our success rate with our clients is fantastic. 95% of the people are incredibly satisfied. So it is possible. It takes work and it takes time, but you can go for the good so far outweighs the bad that you barely notice it, the tough stuff. Okay, so I just wanted to frame that out at the beginning so that it's realistic for you and you know what you're realistically going for. So the good news, as we talked about, is that you can infuse, if you will, a sense of passion and purpose in your work. And you can do this into your current role, or if you need to make a change, that's okay too. We'll talk about both. And the deal is, if you look on this slide here with the compass, we basically all have an internal compass that guides us and shows us what is going to be fulfilling for us. And I'm going to show you how to tune into that compass today. So I wanted you to walk away with kind of this visual image of this internal compass that we all have, and your job is to just tap into it and tune into it on a regular basis. Okay? So here's our agenda. We are going to talk about the importance of fulfillment. I think we all kind of know what it is. We'll touch on that for just a second. The three keys, though, that we are going to talk about in terms of finding greater fulfillment at work is, number one, aligning with authenticity, two, defining true fulfillment, tapping into talents, and then at the end, we're going to come up with 2 action items, and I'll have a quick slide about our Commodore Career Intensive that's coming up in just a few weeks. There's a discounted rate there. It's just for Vanderbilt alumni. So this is where we're going today, okay? All right, so here's the deal. Why is this sense of fulfillment important? And why is there a mermaid on this slide, right? I'll explain both. So first of all, in one of, I feel like, I guess about every, let's say 5 to 7 years, give or take, maybe a little bit less, I see a survey of satisfaction, whether it's from Right Management, when you look on the screen here, or the Conference Board. Lots of different places will survey American workers on their satisfaction with their jobs. And every time I see this, the stats are low. And it's frustrating and unfortunate. The most recent one that I found was from Right Management 2012. Only 19% of the workforce in America is satisfied with their jobs. So we know that this is still a problem. Enough people are not satisfied and fulfilled in their work. And so the reason why this is important, I mean, the numbers just show it to us. And we all know that we spend a ton of time at work. We might as well feel fulfilled in it. Our jobs, even when we try to create boundaries around them understandably, they're still going to influence our personal lives. So we need to feel fulfilled in them. And when it's possible to do so, why not, right? So the reason why there's a mermaid on this slide is basically because when I was a kid, I grew up in Florida, and I wanted to be a weeky-watchy mermaid when I grew up. That was it. I remember going there, watching them float around. It sounded fantastic and cool. And obviously today, I don't even know if the place is still open. I need to look that up next time. But obviously today, that's not a realistic career path for me, and it's not something I actually want to do. But I wanted to start out today with giving you all a tip here. If you look at the bottom left, when I looked at, you know, career coaching and owning my own business, what I do today, there are actually things about that job, being a mermaid, about entertaining people, about that sense of freedom. There are things in there that give me a sense of what is important to me in my job today. So I want to encourage you all, one of the action steps you can take is even if one of your dreams or interests or passions is just not realistic, it's not something you should go do, it won't pay enough or for whatever reason, dig underneath it anyway, because there could be clues of things that you want to have in a job, elements of a job that you want to have that you can find in other ways. Okay? So I encourage you, even if that thing on the surface isn't the right job, dig underneath it and think to yourself for a few minutes about, okay, why is this appealing to me? Why am I drawn to it? And write about that for a few minutes. Is it the freedom? Is it the independence? Is it the creativity? Is it educating people? Come up with what is appealing about that thing, and then think about, okay, how can I infuse this either into my job now or into a new career? There could be clues there to what's important to you and fulfilling, okay? All right, so let's get started specifically on the 3 keys to finding fulfillment that we're going to talk about today, the authenticity, fulfillment, and tapping into talents, okay? So the first one, key number 1, is to align with authenticity. And I love this quote here about, I feel like, we all have a sense deep down of who we are authentically, our true self. And sometimes it can be hard to speak to that and voice it, okay? And it's incredibly important. In order to be fulfilled, everyone, you have to be authentic. I mean, we all know this. You can't be pretending to be something else or someone else when you're at work, because there's going to be some dissonance. There's going to be a problem there, okay, if you have to do that. So aligning with authenticity is the first key. And in order to be fulfilled, we have to be able to be authentic at work. Now, one could argue, yes, we're not going to lay it all out there, right? And we'll talk about that a little bit today, too. You're not going to say everything on your mind, and you're not going to lay every personal detail out there. That's not what it's about. But you need to feel as authentic as you want to at your job in order to feel fulfilled. So if you look at the bottom of this slide here on the bottom right, there are basically 2 reasons for feeling inauthentic at work, and this gets in the way of our fulfillment. So number 1 is sometimes we end up defining ourselves by external circumstances, and we'll talk about both of these in just a moment. And another reason that can happen that can kind of stunt our authenticity and therefore stunt our sense of fulfillment is we may not be sharing enough at work, and we feel like in some ways we have to become someone else to be at our job, okay? So let's talk about both of these for a moment, because it will help us, dealing with both of these will help us align more with our authenticity and who we are at our core, okay? So go back to the compass for just a moment, if I can frame this for you again. Go back to the compass and think of your authenticity and who you are as a person at your core, your values, your priorities, what's important to you. Those things are your internal compass. And what happens to us, like I said on the previous slide, is sometimes problems arise when there's either interference or deviation. Okay, we get away from that for whatever reason. And so the first thing that we talked about a moment ago is if we define ourselves externally too much and those external circumstances change, then we've lost our sense of self. So take a look at this slide here for a moment. So what can happen to us, especially at work, is we might get, we just get caught up in our daily lives and we define ourselves externally. And what that means is we might start to define ourselves a little bit by our job title, by your salary, by the prestige of your job. And those can be part of how you define yourself. That's okay. But you don't want it to be all of it, because, again, if your external circumstances change, then that sense of yourself could change as well. And we need to, if you look at the bottom here of this slide, you need to have your sense of self come from the inside out, because external circumstances can change. And then the second thing is we need to remove those external definitions that we don't want or that don't work for us, okay? And we need to, on the next slide, we'll talk for a second about what to share at work versus not. But I want you to think about one of the action items you can consider after this is, okay, how am I defining myself at work? And is it in the right way? Am I too caught up in some of these external things like salary or job title or whatever it is? It's one of the things to consider after this, okay? All right. So the second thing is, under key number 1, is we don't always feel like we can be truly authentic at work because we might be concerned about sharing too much. And I know this is a common question for people. I remember feeling this way too, and still do sometimes. How do I know, when I can share something, where I can share it, and if it's even appropriate, okay? And I liked this quote, and we're not going to have time to talk about this a ton today, but I gave you at the bottom this great Harvard Business Review article about how much to share in any role, in a leadership role, but in any role that you're in an organization. And how do you be yourself, but do it carefully? And this quote is taken directly from that. So just as a reminder, everyone, you will get the slides, so you'll have these links. You can copy and paste them into your browser. But one of the things that we need to think about is, okay, how much do we share at work? And are we being as authentic as we want to be in order to be fulfilled? And if you take a look at this next slide here, this is the Johari window. And I'll give you just a quick overview. And again, here, if you look at this link at the bottom from Wikipedia, really helpful description of this. But the Johari window was developed by 2 psychologists, and it is basically a model for getting and giving feedback in a communication model. But it can also help you define where you're not being authentic at work. So what are the things people know about you, and what are the things people don't know, but you would like them to in order to feel authentic, but still remain professional? So if you look at the top left here, what I know about me and what others, that's the open part. This is what everyone knows. It's all good, all of that. If you look at the bottom right below that where it's hidden, what I know but what others don't know, that's the place. Number 3 is where you can think about for homework, okay, what are the things that, I would like people to know because it would help me be more authentic. Then we've got the blind spot, number 2, what I don't know and what others know about me. You can ask for feedback about that, and we'll talk about that a little bit later in our presentation today. And then there's the unknown at the bottom, number 4. So number 3 is where you all want to focus based on what we're talking about today. And the things that you may want to share, just so you know what might be appropriate, it could be details like where you are from, where you went to college, fulfilling experiences for you, or hobbies that you have. You don't want to share details of your divorce or a recent surgery or something like that. We all kind of know what's appropriate and not. And I would suggest, by the way, that if you have any sense that it might not be appropriate, err on the side of caution. But you need to think about, okay, it would feel better for me and I would be able to be more authentic at work if people knew these 2 or 3 things. And then think about when and where you want to share those and with whom. Your closest peer at work maybe first and then down the line, okay? So the bottom line here, everyone, is when there is too much hidden, there's too much in that number 3 here, bottom left, we can feel inauthentic and it can become a problem, okay? All right, so here's how we can here's 3 possible action steps, and I mentioned a few already, but you can take a look at these as well, in order to align more with authenticity. If you look at the image here, I love this on the left. It's a Mobius strip, and I actually didn't know about this. Someone else had to tell me about it, but it's very cool because it shows us, it's the image of how it's kind of seamless. Your internal life and external life is seamless, and it comes back to what are those things that we need to share in order to be authentic, and we want to have harmony between those 2 things. So 3 action steps you can take, like we talked about. Where might you be defining yourself incorrectly or externally? Do you feel like yourself at work? Why or why not? Simple question, write down your answers. You could talk to your boss if there are things you realize, ooh, I need to do more of in order to feel more authentic. You could talk with them about it. And the third thing you could do is imagine and kind of visualize what would your ideal day at work be like for you. And if you were being your true, most authentic self, what would that be like and what would you be saying or doing? That could be a clue to infuse more authenticity into what you do. Okay? All right, so let's go to the next key here. All right, so, and let me actually get all of these up. Okay, fantastic. All right. So key number 2 is to define true fulfillment. And again, as we talked about, we spend a lot of time at work and it impacts all areas of our lives, so we really want to have that and go for that fulfillment. And I say true fulfillment because I think, we toss this word around a lot and it can become kind of cliche. And what we want to do is really, think of it as getting back to our core and what's most important to us, okay? So some ways, if you look at the slide here about how to define true fulfillment, here are some ways that you can do this. And I'll give you some examples here as we talk about the values. So one of the things you can do, and this is a great exercise, I'll do this at speeches often, where I just have people kind of go around the room and define what success means to them. So one way to understand what's truly fulfilling to you at your core is to think about, okay, what does success mean to me? Is it money? That's okay, totally fine. Is it interacting with others on a regular basis? Perhaps if you're really extroverted and like that, connection with people. Is it that you want to help other people? Or would you prefer to help and you like advising about or help businesses grow and improve? So just think about what success means to you and write it down. Jot down a few thoughts. It can give you some clues. The second thing you can do is identify your top 3 career values. You can identify more, everybody. It's fine. But just so that you know, as kind of a general number, I usually have people identify between 5 and 7 career values and then have them stop, because if you get too many, it can kind of diffuse the message. But if you can identify your top 3 career values, as an example, it will help you understand what's going to be more fulfilling for you at work. And so what I mean by a career value is this, is our values are basically our guideposts to fulfillment. Values are bigger than ethics or morals. They can be ethics or morals, but they're bigger than that. They're basically things that when we take action towards them and we honor them on a daily basis in our lives regularly and in our career, we will feel more fulfilled. Okay, and I'll give you some examples in just a moment. And if you can take it a step further and say, okay, what are my career values? What are those things that I want to be honored at work? And you either take action steps right now to honor those more at your current job, or if you can't do that, find a new job that will honor them. You will feel more fulfilled and rewarded. And one of the ways that we have, if you look on the slide here, to identify career values is to think of a peak experience. So it's a basic peak experience exercise. And what I mean by a peak experience is a time in your life where you felt lit up inside, excited, like things were rocking and rolling. It could be a period of time. It could be a moment of time. And honestly, everybody, it doesn't have to be professional. We actually always have people start with a personal peak experience, because then we're truly getting to their core instead of them thinking about, okay, well, my career values should be accomplishment and success and those kind of things, okay? So I encourage you, start with a personal peak experience first, and then you can do a work one as well. But think about what that peak experience is and focus less on the details of it, everyone, and more about what was cool about it for you. That's what I always ask clients. Less about, I was in this place, I was talking with these people, and more about, well, I felt great because it was a sense of accomplishment or challenge, or I was educating others. So I'll give you a quick example here. One of our clients had a trip to Europe as one of their peak experiences. And when they started talking about it, what they were saying to me, and I just have people kind of blurt, so I would encourage you with this exercise to just kind of free flow write, everyone, or tell someone and have them help you pull out your values. But this person on their trip, they learned about other cultures. It was a challenge for them to kind of get by in a different language or speaking a different language. And they also had to plan and budget for it, and that was part of what they liked too. And if you sit and think about this, you could start to pull out what this person's values are, right? This learning, okay, education, being more worldly and understanding other cultures. Those are possible values for this person. The challenge, having a challenge every day at work. That was something that they wanted to have in their job as well. And that planning for it and having a budget, working with numbers, that could be a possible value too. So please know, everyone, that when you're identifying your values, they can be anything. It doesn't matter as long as it's important to you. It doesn't matter what it is. But those things can help you understand what you need to be doing in your job every day in order to be more fulfilled, okay? So think about, for me, right now, 2 action steps that you could take, okay, in order to identify your values, I would suggest these two, defining, success for you and your top 3 career values. And then what I want you to do for homework as well, everybody, I'm sorry, I know I assign homework. I sound like a teacher, but I'm a coach. That's what we do. One of the things you want to do tonight after you have identified your values is you want to think about 2 action steps to honor those values more at work right now. And honestly, everybody, I've had people say, one of my values is having things in order because it makes, my office is less cluttered, I'm more effective, all of that. And they'll go back and organize their office and have a new system of keeping things in place. And it makes an enormous difference for them. A small thing like that can make a huge difference when you're then honoring a value, okay? So make sure that that's part of your homework assignment, that you come up with action items in order to honor these more at your work right now. Even if you decide that you need to make a change later on, I have always had clients, when they come back from doing this exercise, they have been able to make some changes in their current job, and they already start to feel better. It's a huge difference, okay? All right, so continuing with key number 2 for a moment is to create a career vision board, okay? I keep forgetting to take these off these little animations. I need to do that. So in terms of key number 2 and defining true fulfillment, these are 2 other things that you all can do. And some people like vision boards, some people like to journal. Whatever works for you all is totally fine. But I wanted to give you 2 more ways to help you define what's truly fulfilling for you. So number 1 could be create a career vision board. You all have probably heard about this. This is basically where you get a poster board, big piece of paper, and you clip out images or words. You imagine yourself in 10 years career-wise. Where do you want to be? What goals do you want to achieve? If you're not sure yet, just start somewhere with some ideas, kind of go with your gut, and focus on the qualities that you want the job to have, the qualities that you want to have as an employee, the skills you want to be using, the service you want to provide, or the impact you want to have. Anything goes on your vision board, okay? And the other thing I wanted to suggest is number 2, a daily review. Have a notepad by your computer. Do it for a week. And write down at the end of each day for 5 minutes, doesn't have to take that long before you leave, what 3 things were rewarding today, what was fulfilling. And think about, too, what talents were you using? Because sometimes all we need is a perspective shift about what we're currently doing. We can get stuck in a rut sometimes. I know I have, even with coaching, which I love. And sometimes we just need a change in perspective, and this will help us focus in the right place instead of what was frustrating on what went well. So skip those coffee break complaining sessions in the break room and start to focus more on what went well today. And sometimes that's all you need in order to feel better and feel more fulfilled. And I wanted to say this now, too, while I'm thinking about it. I want you all to know that when clients come to us, I mean, we work with people who are wanting greater fulfillment and are just really unsatisfied in their jobs, so they're usually pretty unhappy. And 9 times out of 10, their change in their job is much less dramatic than they thought it needed to be at the beginning. It's only because they were so frustrated at the beginning they felt like, oh my goodness, I need to go be a circus clown or something totally different. But I'm telling you, 9 times out of 10, the shift is much more subtle than you think it needs to be. So that's kind of the good news. So don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Try to make some changes at your current job if you can. And then if it's not working so well and you just realize it's not going to happen here, then, of course, make a change. But consider that you might be able to stay put. It's a lot easier, right? Okay, so key number 3 is to tap into talents and skills. And I love this quote. I've actually seen this quote at the bottom of clients' signature lines. So here's the deal with this. That studies show that if you are not using your natural talents and abilities at work and your skills, that you will not be fulfilled. It doesn't matter if you love your boss and your peers and the work environment and all of that. If you're not using your talents and skills, it's not going to work. I was actually talking to a client, Karen, this morning. She's in Baltimore. And she does the industry that she's in, she actually doesn't like it very much. She doesn't care about it. She doesn't hate it, but she's not that into it. But because she is using all of her natural talents and abilities at work, the ones that she thoroughly enjoys using, she actually really likes her job. And we are talking about making a course correction for her into a different industry, but in the same type of role. And so what I want you to get is, I mean, she's been in her job. It's been about 10 years. And because she's using those talents and skills so much, it's keeping her afloat in terms of fulfillment, okay? So talents and skills are critically important to fulfillment as well, okay? So let's take a look at this. How do we identify them, all right? So we can use a self-assessment. If you take a look at this slide for a moment here, there's self-assessment, there are career assessments you can take, interviewing others. We'll talk about all of these for just a moment here. So first of all, in order to identify the talents and skills that you have, but also that you want to continue using, because there's enough people too that come to us and say, I'm so good at spreadsheets and I'm so tired of them, okay? So you want to be thinking of the talents and skills that you want to continue to use, right? So in terms of the self-assessment, one thing you can do and ask yourself is, think of past experiences that you really enjoyed at work and what skills were you using, okay? So think about past experiences, even if they weren't work ones, volunteer-wise, even in school or a project or something like that, or if you're serving on a board, but something more professional related, what skills were you using? You can also look at your daily reviews that we talked about a moment ago for a week. What themes do you see in terms of, talents and skills you were using, okay? There are also, the second one, career assessments. One of the ones that we like at my company is StrengthsFinder. I like it a lot because it's low cost, and you get a ton of great information. It's $10. If you go to strengthsfinder.com, you can just take the test, or you can buy the book, and the test, a code for the test actually comes with it. There are resources like this, by the way, on the Vanderbilt Alumni website as well, so I encourage you to check those out. StrengthsFinder is great, though. It can give you a sense of what your strengths are. It gives you your top 10, I believe, in the short version of the report, okay? So you can take an assessment that way. And then in terms of the third one here, interviewing others, what I encourage people to do, because we tend to discount what comes naturally to us, I know I do, and all of our clients do as well, and you want to be careful of that, is interviewing others is great. You can talk to peers at work, at a former job. You can talk to family and friends. You can even, talk to your boss even about, what do you see are my strengths and my talents? It can be reaffirming in some cases, things you already know, but you might learn something new too as well. And by the way, I encourage you a couple of things. Number one, I encourage you to interview male and female just to get different perspectives. A smattering of people in your life, work and personal, because they might have a different perspective too. And number three is, if you're talking to your boss and you decide to, approach it as that you're confident. You know that you know what your talents and skills are, but you want to learn more about it. So you could say something like, I feel like I have a sense of what they are, but I'm curious what you think as well, so I can make sure I'm leveraging those effectively at work. Because we know we don't want to go into our boss and sound like we have no idea what our strengths are. But if you say it in the right way and you're confident about it, it will make a huge difference. But I actually think this is really helpful because it can be woven into your goals for your job, as well as the upcoming performance review that you might have. And how do we know and make sure I'm leveraging my strengths? Okay? Then, just as a reminder, once you've identified what these talents and skills are, look at the ones that are most rewarding for you to use and how often you use them now and how you can increase that. So if you look at the bottom of the slide here, step number 2 in this process is to think about, okay, A, what are my top 3, let's say, most rewarding talents and skills? Prioritize them for yourself. Number 2, think about the percentage of your day that you're using them now. StrengthsFinder and the people who developed that test are all about leveraging our strengths and minimizing weaknesses, not going into our performance reviews all the time, which is what most of corporate America does, and focusing on how can we fix our weaknesses. There's a great quote, actually, kind of a tongue twister, from Marcus Buckingham, who is one of the people that helped develop and utilizes the StrengthsFinder. And he talks about, if you focus on your weaknesses all the time, all you get is not bad instead of good or great. If you're focusing on your strengths, that's what you need to do, okay? So think about the percentage of the day you're using them now. And then the third thing is, how can you increase that percentage? Can you increase it by adjusting your role at all? Could you talk to your boss about possible changes? Could you volunteer for another project at work? And can you plan your day around your strengths, perhaps? Lots of ways that you can work on and think about adjusting your day and your role to fit your talents and skills a little bit more, okay? All right, so that was key number 3, and we're getting close to our time. We'll have some good time for Q&A at the end here, which is perfect. So let's review just for a moment here what we covered today. Is in order to find fulfillment, and I love this fishbowl. Celia and I talked about this. I use it a lot, and I don't know, it's just the perfect image for this. So I'm using it again in this presentation as well. But remember, it's aligning with authenticity, define and focus on true fulfillment, and tapping into talents. And the reason why I like this fishbowl so much, just by the way, is because all of what we're talking about today, everyone, it requires some element of risk. And at the end here, I'm going to leave you with a slide before we get into the Q&A part about risk and how important that is. Because all of this requires change and some element of risk as a result. But if you think about and take this image away with you in your head, you get into this bigger fishbowl. It is well worth it. That's the bottom line. Okay? All right. So let's take a moment here to think about action steps. And I want you all to please right now on your computer or pad and paper, think about 2 action steps that you will take in the next week based on what we've learned today. Because I don't know about you, but I've gone to these webinars before or a presentation or whatever, and I'm so gung-ho afterwards because I'm all jazzed. And then I forget. My cell phone rings, and I don't take action. So I really want you to take action from this. And then feel free to share your action steps online. It can be helpful to share these with others as well, whether it's online today or with a friend who will help hold you accountable, okay? And if we have time today during the Q&A, we will read some of them. It just kind of depends on our time frame. So feel free to share those if you feel inspired to, because it can help. It will help you be more solid in it, but also sharing with other people holds you more accountable, okay? So think about that for a moment. And then I wanted to just mention this really quickly. So starting March 10th, we have a 4-session webinar coming up that I will be hosting just for Vanderbilt alumni. This is perfect for you if you, number 1, want to figure out how to make your current job more fulfilling and whether you should stay or go, or number 2, if you want to change direction and you know that you want to, but you're not sure what direction to go in. So take a look at this slide at the end, and on the link here on the website, it will describe more about this program coming up. We're very excited about it. It's awesome. All right. So I want to leave you all with this final slide here to think about. In life, if you don't risk anything, you risk everything. I love this. I also love the quote, the greatest risk in life is not taking one. That's something that has always helped me get through more challenging times when I need to make changes. So remember, everyone, that I know we're talking about changes today, some small, some large. It depends on your situation, right? But any change that we decide to implement requires risk. And it requires us to step out of our comfort zone in some way, shape, or form. We may need to try something new. We may need to talk to our boss, yikes, about changing our role. We may need to leave our job. And I just want you to know that in the end, it's worth it. And you don't want to look back, 5 years down the road, look back and wonder, what just happened? I didn't do anything, and I still am not fulfilled, okay? So remember that you can take baby steps, and they can make a huge difference. The change doesn't have to be as dramatic as you think sometimes. And even if you take these small steps, you will make progress. I promise you it will get better, okay? So let's move on and go to the Q&A for today. And we are actually going to do a door prize. Celia and I are going to kind of pull a name out of a hat at the end and send someone one of my career transition books as a thank you for being here. So I really appreciate your time, and we can go ahead and open it up for Q&A.
Awesome. Thank you, Hallie. Lots of great tips there, and I love the sort of let's be accountable starting now. So if anybody doesn't have a question but has ideas of action items that might inspire and encourage other alumni that are on this call, I'd love to see those. There, again, is a little questions box you can type into, and we were monitoring that. We have a few minutes left, so don't be shy if you have something burning, maybe something specific or something more general you think that folks in all different situations could appreciate the answer to.
Yeah, any resources too. I love these because I always learn something new too as well.
I do too, and of course some of them can be so specific that Hallie's like, never been in that situation, but
yeah,
I guess I have a question, Hallie. It's just to get the gears going, because I think no matter what place you are in your career, it's hard to navigate those work relationships, and like you spoke to, sort of this internal knowing what's appropriate, what's not. Can you speak to some of the appropriateness of, or inappropriateness of, making friends at work and sharing with them your struggles and your weaknesses? Is there a way to tactfully do that so it's not used against you, but it encourages folks to help make your strengths even stronger, and not focus on your weaknesses?
I think that's such a great question, because, and it depends on the corporate kind of culture too. Like, I wish all corporate cultures would shift to this, being more open about it and helping people minimize their weaknesses and leveraging other team members in order to overcome those. But it's not always the case. So in terms of, making friends at work, it depends on your personality, honestly. I've had some people say they want their coworkers to be like family, and other people say, no, I just want to punch the clock and go home too. So a little bit depends on what your preference is. I think it is totally fine to do that, to make friends at work, but I would still always remember that you're at work and you need to be professional. There may be one or two people that you just know you can trust, and I would wait for a while, and know them for a long enough time that you feel comfortable with that you can share more with over time, and you can share your weaknesses with them, okay? And I think that's totally fine to do. I think you always just want to keep in the back of your mind that you want to be professional about it, and just remember that, you don't want to blurt it all out necessarily, but you can share it over time as part of maybe asking for help, and also maybe asking for their advice on, how to overcome it, especially if you know that they might have the same weaknesses, the same one or two weaknesses that you do.
Awesome, excellent. We have somebody that has asked, are values like creativity overrated? So of course everyone wants to be creative, but so many jobs don't really allow for that. Is that an unrealistic wish, to be creative in your job?
Great question. I don't think so. I think it depends on how you define it, right? So there's and you need to think about this, obviously, is what does creativity mean to you? For some people, it might mean literally like being an artist or a graphic designer. But for other people, it might just mean creative problem solving, or coming up with ideas or new solutions, like in marketing or something like that. And, we've all heard the term creative accounting, right? And this is a running joke. So first of all, I think you need to define clearly what you mean by creative, what that means for you, number one. And number two, no, I absolutely don't think it's unrealistic. At some organizations, it may be less realistic because of the way they're set up, or their culture is like that, where they just don't encourage it, or your role doesn't require it. And if that's the case, then you probably do need to move on. But no, absolutely, you can have creativity in your work. It just depends on if you're in the right place, the right role, right organization, and what that creativity means to you.
All right, and this is more of a tip, but I resonate what this person has said. I really like the example of to pull out what truly matters to you, like planning the trip to Europe. So it's a unique way to approach the brainstorming process. Thanks for the tip. I do think sometimes we feel like our hobbies or our vacations, as it were, have to be just that, but really finding what moves us and what motivates us within those things, being able to source those for our fulfillment at work is definitely a great tip.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And remember, everybody, just dig underneath them and see. It's kind of like a mining expedition. You want to mine for what's important to you. I had a client once who was a docent, I think it was in college. She was a docent at a museum, and when we did this exercise, she had completely forgotten about it, but then remembered how much she loved it, and there were qualities there that she wanted to incorporate. So great, thanks for sharing.
Okay, I have two more, and that's all we have time for, but how do you determine what is a realistic expectation of your current job and expectations of those around you if you maybe have a yin-yang and different values? So I guess address the juxtaposition of values and expectations within a workplace.
Yeah, that's really, really good. So if your corporate culture the values don't align with yours, or it rubs or smushes yours, you're probably not going to be in the right place, and you probably need to leave, because that's just long-term going to be tough. If your values are different from your coworkers, what you need to think about is, like, how important is this to you, and how much does it rub you the wrong way? Is it 100% of the time? Is it 50%? Can you live with it a little bit? And what I would do is try to understand where they're coming from. Number one, realize my values are different. It doesn't mean they're a bad person. We're just different. Can you try to understand them a little bit more and come from their perspective, perhaps? That could help ease the tension, just kind of understanding what's going on. And then if it's not rubbing you the wrong way all the time, then just, try to find a way to kind of work around it. Maybe explain what your values are and why you come at it a different way. But have a discussion about it even, perhaps. And you don't have to use the word values. You can say, I think we have a different perspective on this, and here's why. Can we come up with a compromise? Try that.
Awesome. You sort of addressed this, and it is 12:45, so I know folks have to hop off. But the last question was roughly, and I do think we all want numbers applied to this, even though it's sort of, you got to feel it out for yourself. Roughly what percentage of your values from best experiences should and maybe can you apply to your job?
What percent of them? I'm going to say 80%. I think it's pretty high.
Great.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, that's hopeful, and like you've helped us with the action items. Feel free, folks, just because we love providing things that really move you and help you in your development, even reply to my email later today with some of these action items that might encourage others. I'm happy to be your accountability, and I know Hallie, along with the other alumni that are signed up already for the Career Intensive, would love to be that accountability for you. So this is absolutely a wonderful thing we love to provide for free, this webinar series here this spring and throughout the year, but the Career Intensive is more of a deep dive. So if you're seeking more of that and more coaching from Hallie, please do sign up for that before, I guess, March 9th, and then it begins on the 10th, and you guys will get started. Thanks so much, Hallie. I really appreciate your time today, and for all of you that joined us, I appreciate your attention. And again, more on this Career Intensive and other resources we have are coming at you in an email later today, along with the slides from this that we encourage you to share so more folks can appreciate these tips and tricks and also apply them to their lives. Everybody have a wonderful rest of your day and your week, and be safe.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.